exercise in the back. There's some videos, so it should be really entertaining. And a lot of information will be dispensed out. So our first speaker is going to start off with Levi Escalera. He's with the program director for the Center for American Indian and Economic Development at NAU in Flagstaff. And really appreciate your time tonight.
Thanks so much, Trent. All right, man, I'm in the house. Doesn't get better than that. Just a little bit about me. I'm originally from Parker, Arizona. It's the home of the Colorado River Indian Reservation. But I'm an enrolled member at the Chemehuevi tribe, which is in California, right across from Lake Havasu City, Arizona. So for those of you not familiar with Arizona, that's where Legend Bridge is at. We're on the opposite side of that. All right? It's all good, all good. That's it, that's it. That's how we roll. So it's really interesting, you know, yesterday we were hearing from Daryl, and I was actually serving with my tribe when that partnership started, and that's kind of some of the things that we were struggling with, I still see them struggling with, and I see that at least they got some momentum going, and I'm really curious for this tribal wallet policy study that's going to get done, because I think that's important for us to always have a voice and to be involved. I'm going to be talking to you about 4 or 5 items real quickly, and I think we have questions at the end and an activity. Is that how we're rolling?
Yeah, at the very end is the activity, but there will be questions after each speaker.
Okay. All right. First, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about Local First Arizona, because I think it's a great model for us and we can learn a lot from it. Then we're going to talk about a place where I used to always go and eat. It's not there anymore, but the story is really important. And then I want to talk about a nonprofit group called Partnership for Native Americans. I only have one slide on that. And then I'm going to talk about Native American beef and then some of the work that we're doing with Yavapai Apache Nation. And we do have an expert in the house regarding Native American beef. So any questions on that, I can defer, right? And your name, sir?
Gray Farrell.
Gray Farrell will be happy to answer any questions on Native American beef. All right. First, I want to put the slide in there. I serve on the board of Local First Arizona. And I think there's some things that we can actually learn from this group, especially in our tribes and our tribal economies. One of the things that they really stress in Local First Arizona is buying locally, buying within the state of Arizona. And I think you take it a step further, and I think one of the things that we lack in our tribal communities is our local economy. And they say that to have a healthy economy, the dollar needs to turn over at least 7 times. Unfortunately, what we see a lot in our tribal communities is you get paid, and where do you go? Flagstaff, okay, the mall, you leave the community, right? That dollar does not turn over. And one of the things we found out, and there was a study done that said for every $100 spent on a locally owned business, $43, so 43% stays in the local economy. And if not, 13% if you spend with non-local. In reality, I think when you go to tribal communities, even more of that money will leave the tribal community. And this is something that's always frustrated me, especially in some of the work that we're trying to do is strengthen the tribal economies, is getting us to buy locally. And there's a reason why we should do this. And here's the top 10 reasons of what Local First came up with. The very first one is you keep the money local. You actually put more, and there's more money going around in your economy, so there's more opportunities for you. You get a sense of pride in your place. You know, and as you go through there, one of the things that I really want to highlight on is number 5, create jobs in your community. We were working with a local high school where we do a lot of outreach with entrepreneurship. And we were working with a high school doing a business club. And they had this idea that they wanted to open up a print shop. And their goal is they wanted to print their yearbook. So they had a long-term vision is, hey, we want to have a print shop and we want to print our yearbook. They went in front of their school board. Their school board actually bought the printer that they were requesting. Thought it was pretty cool. And then they start to sell, they start to do printing within the local community. And there was a senior there, high school senior, and he got up one time and he says, You need to, he says, I'm tired of seeing people always run to the border town, you know, and doing their little Kinkos at the time and printing all their stuff, when we can do that service locally. And you need to buy it from us because you keep me, I got a job because of this. And I think sometimes we need to have that attitude. We need to go out of our way to make sure we're supporting our local economy. You know, and in this case, this was a job that was created. And I'm happy to say that this high school, they actually did print their yearbook. Now, was it the greatest quality? No, but you know what? It was local. And their second time they did it, that yearbook is so much more better because they learned. And how much more can we do that as well when we support our local roots? So those are some of the areas that I just want to highlight as we look on here. You know, one of the things I think when we look around, we go to tribal communities, is there's a ton of opportunities. But those opportunities only exist if we're willing to support those individuals. We work with a community in San Carlos, the Vilas district. And one of the things that they actually do is they look at their local economy. And I know I'm getting a little off track, but I just want you to keep this in mindset of where you're at in your communities. They actually look at the tribal budget. And they find out where's leakage occurring. So they found out that they spend $50,000 on t-shirts. You know what they did? They bought a portable printer, they hired 2 tribal members to be graphic designers, and now they make their own t-shirts. They got the contract from the tribe, they went up north, they got the Rodeo Association north of there, and now they created 2 or 3 more jobs because they saw an opportunity. And when you're within your community, there's plenty of opportunities. This is the other thing that Local First does on their website in order to promote local foods. They talk a lot about farmers markets, but they also talk about restaurants. And for the first time last year, mom and pop restaurants are growing at a faster rate than franchises. So that tells me that, hey, we're starting to see the value of, you know, those individuals who have a passion from the food industry and to buy from them, right? To go there and eat. You know, a lot of times we come and there's the franchises, but sometimes I think the best places where you can go are the mom and pops, the holes in the walls, because those are the ones who have a passion. And it's probably a product that you're going to enjoy. It's probably based upon the locality of where you're at. So this is a little about Local First. So I want to give them a little plug. We really are trying to work and establish a tribal component with this as well. The other thing that we're finding out is with Local First and now with Partnerships for Native Americans, they actually have a couple of programs. These are the areas they serve, so if you're in those areas, they do community gardens and they also do a train-the-trainer. One of the things that we're finding out is there's a difference between traditional food and ancestral food, and I didn't know this. So I always ask people, hey, is fried bread a traditional food? What, yes or no? Yeah?
Yes or
no? No? Well, I mean, we have arguments who makes the best fried bread, right? Where's the best fried bread at? Anybody? Shanto. Where? Elko, Nevada? That's the best.
Get my belly.
Now, I was taught that fried bread was, I don't know if it's so much a traditional food or ancestral, I was taught it was a survival food, right? When we were rounded up and we were put on reservations and we got rations, and sometimes the meat might spoil, but you still cooked it to get the grease out, and that's how you made it. Well, as much as I understand that and have a great respect for it, I do know that there's some side effects from fried bread, right? Some of the issues that we're fighting against. Yeah, I carry a little bit around with me, right? But ancestral food is, what they found out is, as opposed to go doing the farmer markets and all that, it's going out and look at the foliage, right? Finding out what's locally growing. And in my case, you know, the Chippewa, we're actually Southern Paiutes, so we're most of the Southern Paiutes, we had our travel songs. And what those songs were is, where do you go to the next place to make your next gathering, whether it was with water or what type of food you're going to be eating. And I think we need to start introducing that back into our culture and our community. So I'm always fascinated in Arizona when I go around and I see a mesquite tree, you know, because there's plenty of mesquites there. And you know what I do? I pick them. And one day I took them home, and at the time I had 3 daughters in my house, and I said, hey, we're going to have a tree. we're gonna have the Snicker bar that I used to eat when I was a little kid. And I showed them and they're like, no, Dad. And I said, taste it. And it had the sweet, so I picked some good ones. Sometimes I pick some that are too tart and I get in trouble with my family, and other times I'm perfect. So I still need to remember those things as well, but it's a way to introduce that back. One of the things at Partnership for Native Americans is they're starting to try to get back, how can they introduce our ancestral foods back, and they actually have funding and programs available for that. I think it's a great program. This is a chef, Nephi Craig, doing a class, I think, at White Mountain, introducing ancestral foods and then putting a spin on it to make it more current with our times. Because sometimes we don't want to eat, right, stuff that we don't know, which is really unfortunate. Here's a place that I used to always go to in Sales, Arizona. Desert Rain Cafe and Gallery. And what they did is they used to always get crops that were in season from the local area, and they'd only have maybe 3 or 4 items on their menu, and it was good. Unfortunately, I haven't been there, I haven't been supporting them, and they've closed down, so they might be opening back up. All right. Sometimes politics get involved, but this is a great model that you actually had a local community that was looking at the local crops and putting it into practice. I'm starting to see a lot more opportunities within tribal communities of this type of activity popping up. We did a study for the Yavapai Apache Nation regarding millennials. And they wanted to find out price points for different type of activities that millennials wanted to do. What we found out is the activity that the tribe had us look at 11 different business activities. One of them was traditional cooking classes. It had the highest price points between, I think, $75 and $150 per class. That blew me away. You know, from all the other activities, that was the one that probably made the most sense, and I think that kind of leads into this as well, is promoting our own food, but then also providing an activity to show others how it is. Finally, I want to spend a little bit of time on native beef. Have any of you ever heard of native beef? Have you eaten native beef? All right, next to a buffalo ribeye I had at Ruth Chris Steakhouse, this is the best beef I've eaten. All right? And I even spent some time down in Argentina, and every day there I had beef, and I got sick of it, but this is good beef, so. This has been going on for a little bit. Whenever I'm in Navajo now, I actually understand that they're in Tuba City now. And I was just in Tuba City for the fair for another activity. I didn't see it, but I understand that's being sold there. And I have a couple of videos regarding native beef. So hopefully it'll work.
So that food service, well-known food service distributor in Albuquerque, New Mexico, when we did that, Blair and I studied the state to learn all about the different population centers, the demographics, the geography of the state, the types of businesses. And much to our surprise, we learned that half the state was Native American. But we immediately went to work and were intrigued by the reservation system, the economics, the self-governance of these sovereign nations. We were intrigued by their culture, by their history, their art, their music. It was a wonderful world we found ourselves in. These reservations, to have a permit for a certain finite number of cattle, not a lot. There was one thing missing. There was no customer. Who would buy Native American beef? Who would buy this beef? And I thought, they are their own customers. There are all these wonderful casinos, schools, nutritional centers. Why couldn't we sell them beef that they would raise? So we created a Native American beef brand. I met Billy Hall. He's a cattle broker out of Oklahoma. He has his own cattle and has 2 feedlots. He taught me the critical steps to grow a calf with the right genetics, so it has the right quality all the way through processing and distribution. There's a group of Navajo families who live in a ranch called 14 Mile. They were relocated from the Hopi Reservation to new lands near Chambers, Arizona. Under the gifted leadership of their community leader, Al Pott, this group of 14 Mile ranchers have come together to raise high-quality, choice-grade beef. For over a year and a half, we worked with 14 Mile and bought their cattle. They can get a $10,000 check every year. And with that, they can fix their cars. If somebody gets sick, they can get a medicine. They can buy higher quality cattle. They can repeat it endlessly. We were blessed when the Navajo Nation and the casinos decided to buy the video. This created an economic engine. It started with livable wage. Then from there, it goes to the convenience store, it goes to building a roof, it goes to schools. That's what the Native American Beef Program is all about. The Navajos were the early adopters and the implementers of this wonderful idea that will help many generations. Now, when you go into the Navajo casino, not only will you be treated to a wonderful meal, this choice is aged 21 days, you also create a social good. You're creating jobs where there's 50% unemployment. You're creating a steady market for the next 10, 15, 20 years.
Some of the things that really stood out to me in this video, wasn't so much just the native beef, it talked about the spin-offs, right? Talked about the job creation, talked about some of the things that are happening by them implementing this. You have a few family now that can actually benefit, that have a way of living income. It's providing for their family, but more importantly than that, we talked about that dollar turning over, it starts to turn over within that community. Here's another video as well.
There's a lot of history here in our reservation. Our land here, great. We got a lot of acreage here, got a lot of grass on it. I'd say it's beautiful out here. Mescalero, Apache, yeah, I've been here all my life. Well, my grandfolks and my late dad, he was a cowboy here most of his life, and you know, he taught us how to have cattle and take care of animals, and that's what I do.
We have good ranchers, good employees out there. They do it the way they used to do it back in the 1800s. They, you know, horseback, they moved from pasture to pasture, from watering spot to watering spot. It all feeds back to the traditional beliefs, the traditional ways of life that are passed down from generation to generation.
I've been here for 35 years. I'm just cowboy my whole life. I'd rather be on a horse and chasing cattle than doing a whole lot of other stuff. My boy, he's 13, he comes out here and volunteers quite a bit. It's just any cowboy's dream is to see their kid out here working with them, you know?
When Mescalero first started to work with the BADS with the Native American Beef Program, our ranching operations started to grow and expand, but it's also contributing to the local economy, and you're starting to diversify the jobs that exist here in Mescalero.
It's a source of pride. Being a Native American, it's really nice to be able to go to a table and they ask you, is this really Native American beef? And you can tell them, yes, it was raised on the reservation. I actually had spoken to one of our elders about the whole program, and he was so excited because he's one of our original cowboys from Cow Camp. He just couldn't wait until this really happens because he said that was always his dream.
It makes you feel real good, you know, to be part of something like that. Right now, it's just the start, you know. Every year it just seems like we get more and more cattle. Oh man, we can't beat that one bit.
That's just a little bit more videos of that. And I wanted to just highlight this real quick, especially the blue part here. I don't know if you can read it, but here it is in 2012. This is on Navajo, right? It produced 545 head of cattle. It talks about it generated a little more than $500,000. And then the following year, it kept on increasing, right? And now you get to the point where they are, I think, 3 years later, it was at 2.3 million. You know, and look, they're almost to 2,000 head of cattle. I think that shows you sometimes when we start supporting our own, the opportunity it has for our own to actually grow and to create more opportunities within the economy to strengthen it, but more importantly, jobs. You know, the other thing I want to highlight on this, though, that I'm always leery, especially when I work with tribes, and I've seen it even within my own tribe, is sometimes tribal politics come involved, right? You get a program up and going, You get new elected leaders, well, it's not their program and they might not support it. And I think the key thing is we need to get past that attitude and actually support as a community. Because I think this actually does the community well, tribal communities well. And that's one of the biggest struggles I actually see is always going back to step one when we have new elected leaders. And I hope that, you know, during election seasons that it doesn't impact some of these great projects that we're actually talking about. Finally, I want to talk about Yavapai Apache Nation. Buddy Rocha Jr. was here last year, and we actually do a lot of work with Yavapai Apache Nation. I really enjoy working with the tribe quite a bit. And we finished up, they're looking at doing a vineyard. So one of their issues is that they have the Verde River that passes right through their community, and they want to start using their water. You know, so they came up with a concept because, and many of you might not know this, but there's a lot of wine in Arizona. It's in this area, and it's also a little bit further south, the southeast corner of Arizona. And so we actually came together and to do a business plan with them. And we put it together, and these are some of the things that, not only when you're starting a winery, but in any type of activity that you're going to be doing, especially with agriculture base, it's really critical, in this case with wine, about the 100-year decision and implications about your wine, but your site selection. So when you're looking at doing any type of activity, look at your site selection, and look at preparing the land, what's going to be a cost for preparing the land. These are things that we deal with not only in business, but in agriculture as well. Site selection, preparing the land. Finally, you know, choosing your product, how it's going to be. And the conclusion of it is, you know, the investment part of it. Now the tribe, this happened in late 2016, the tribal council just approved to go forward with this project. One of the issues that they're facing is they have a successful casino operation. A lot of times what we're seeing is the council wants to see that return on investment as quick as that type of activity, casino. Well, that's the only activity I know that does that has that quick turnaround. Unless you're talking maybe hemp or that, but I don't want to get into that. The struggle is this is a long-term investment, and it might take, the break-even point might be to 7 to 10 years. So that's truly is a long-term commitment to make this project come to reality. And they're actually looking at doing that right now. And I think sometimes when we do investment, especially agriculture-based, there has to be that long-term commitment, that long-term support by the tribe. And I really want to stress the importance not only of the tribe, but as individuals, of citizens of our own nations, of supporting those type of business activities. So with that, I would say in my language, Topik, and I'm going to give back to you, Mark. Oh, yeah, questions?
Questions for anybody?
I have a question about the vineyards. Would they require a lot of water to maintain?
Yeah, one of the things we actually had to do is for a year, even after the business plans, we had to go do temperature on each one, and then they're going to put in a drip system and all that. So it's a way for them to actually use some of their water, but they're not going to, it's going to be a drip system as opposed to other types of irrigation.
Okay.
Yeah?
You can answer that question. I think it's about a third of them, but very low water use. One of the lowest water use crops in the West. And that's why we're seeing vineyard development on reservations across the coast. And specific one in New Mexico. Their well was 400 feet, but still they were making it work.
And then, yeah, it's going to be a drip, and it's about 144 acres that they're looking at doing right now. Arizona just kind of changed their law a little bit too about a couple years ago about if you're growing grape, because there's people bringing in grape from outside the state of Arizona and branding it as their own. The state of Arizona wants to get away from that and actually promote their own. So now you have to have a higher percentage of your own grape that you grow. And that even pushed these numbers back a little bit further for them breaking even, because it takes a while for the vine to mature, 3 to 5 years, I think. So.
So you got 3 years before you can pick, really pick, and then you got another 3 years. You're gonna get 6 years if we have first follow, so.
All right.
Is that a year-round growth, or does it mostly in the winter back like months?
that's when you cut them all back when they go dormant.
Put it down.
Yes.
What was the breed of beef cattle they raised?
Breed of beef cattle.
Some of the requirements is that it has to be 50% English breed, which is Angus, Hereford, Shorthorn, and also
try to stay away from the Brahma breeds. So the meat is choice and premium beef. There's some requirements like Labatt goes out and approves your cattle. If you don't meet the standards, then we as a team will help you get to that level. And the goal is someday to get every Navajo rancher on this program. So that's kind of our goal for this program. And it's also open to other Native American tribes. It's not, as long as you're Native American, raising cattle on Native reservations, then you're welcome to be part of this program.
All right, oh, one more thing, okay?
Is it hard to get a business permit on,
Navajo.
yes?
Nation.
I mean, how hard was it?
It's easy. I think Navajo Nation is probably one of the more difficult tribes to actually get your business license. Sometimes it takes up to 2 years. And one of the things that you see with tribes is land availability. So, in Navajo, one of the concerns is people might have grazing rights and it might not be zoned, and then it's trying to get that permission. You go to other tribes, sometimes they don't even have any land available. It might be assignment land or allotted land. One of the things that I really am pushing for tribes to do as a way to speed up the process is if you get a land allocation and you can set up a master lease, the master lease can be done. So for example, with my tribe at Chemehuevi, we set up a Nuuvi Economic Development Corporation. And what we did is we actually got a lease from our tribe, set up the master lease and went through the BIA and had everyone sign off on it. But it gave us the authority to sublease. So similar to industrial park and all that, whenever we wanted to do a business activity, we could sublease that. And we could do, if a business came in and we could move on it within 30 to 45 days, which is unheard of in most tribal communities. But it's just a model that we set up in place of having a master lease. But that's one of the issues I think all tribes face, is how to set that up and speed up the process. The other thing too that we see frustrating, for example, with my tribe, and the reason why they did that as well is our tribal council only met once a month. So if you're looking at a business proposal that comes in once a month, you discuss it, you might table it for questions, and then it's another 30 days, another 60 days, another 90 days. Where the Economic Development Corporation, it can move a little bit quicker. It was, hey, the board would get together, conference calls and all that, and you can negotiate the deal a lot quicker than waiting every month.
Real excited about our next speaker as well, Dr. Martin Storson. He's with the Painted Desert Demonstration Project and the Star School, and there's some really going from the business side, but it's also growing the business up there and it's education as well. So it's a good combination of a lot of activities that have been talked about at this conference. So and tying it all together.
Ja, J. Mark Sorensen hier at the Star School Nashvish. I come from an area that's closer to Loop, Arizona than it is to Flagstaff, but it's kind of halfway in between. And I live right behind the school that I co-founded. And I wanted to say something first about the Navajo beef idea. So it was interesting to see in this video Al Silva, because he and his chief person in his beef program visited our school. And, you know, I was trying to make the pitch to him that schools serve more meals than anybody on the reservation. We're just a tiny school, 150 kids, but we serve 150 meals twice a day, every day. And there are many, many more schools on Navajo, 266 as a matter of fact. And so if we could just get all our schools together to be part of a purchasing, local purchasing, I think that would be a great economic engine for a lot of our local ranchers and growers. So, so let me tell you a little bit about myself. So I'm a school guy. I've been a principal for over 40 years as principal or superintendent on Navajo. And so how did I get into water? Because that's what I'm here to talk about today. Well, I had been, as I said, a principal of various types of schools, mostly tribally controlled schools. And my whole career has been dedicated to Indian self-determination in education. But as I started getting deeper and deeper into Indian self-determination in education, it became clear to me that we just aren't doing very well with our schools. And finally, it got so frustrating that I figured I just had to start from scratch. So at a little area just off the reservation boundary, there was a plot of land available. It was a junkyard at the time, and so we bought that piece of land, we cleaned it up, and the first building was actually a one-room schoolhouse with 24 kids, and we were just getting ready to open the doors of the school, but it was a modular building and only 2 of the 3 parts were there, and we called up the company and said, when are you going to give us the last part of our building? And they say, when you pay us $90,000. And we thought, where are we going to get that kind of money? Well, that was in the year 2000 when there was free credit just everywhere. We called up our credit card company and said, well, we're in a bind. We need $90,000 by tomorrow. And they said, by tomorrow? Yeah. We said, yeah. And we thought it was a ridiculous request. And they said, oh, no problem. So our first school building was a credit card building. You can believe that. Okay, so the Star School, as I said, is located on the southwest corner of Navajo Nation, just off the res line. And it's a pre-K. We have a preschool going, and it goes all the way up to 8th grade. And we have one of our parents, I'm honored to say, in the audience here, so make sure you clap real loud, you know, so that I can represent well to our parents. So I want to say that when we bought the land, though, there were no power lines coming to the land, no water lines, nothing. It was bare land, and I had lived for a number of years on a ranch near that area, off-grid and solar powered. And we had the wild idea that we could actually solar power a school. It hadn't been done before in this country. There were some villages in Africa that had done this, but nobody in this country. So we are the first one in the United States to be entirely off-grid and solar powered. All right, thank you. Thank you. So our mission is to inspire each other to do our best in service to all relations. This mission statement and our vision come directly out of the idea of our peacemaking values. So we serve a population that's entirely Native, mostly Navajo, and we built our school on the principles coming out of peacemaking, Navajo peacemaking, which is pre-European contact way of resolving conflicts. And those values, there are 4 values, and it was interesting to see them reflected in some of the presentations yesterday. So it's respect, responsibility, relationship, and reasoning, and the foremost of those is relationship. Here you see at our school, the older girls are getting involved in making the corn cake, a pecan. We do this every year in our Harvest Festival. We bring in elders and the older girls get a chance to see how we do this in a traditional way. We buy the corn from all our local tribal farmers. And we, again, like I said before, part of our economic idea is that if schools would turn around if schools would actually use their economic power. Schools have a tremendous amount of money to spend on food and purchasing locally. So anyway, that's what we do. This picture down here are our students working on developing their own wind turbine. So our school is solar and wind powered. So these are facts that you probably are already familiar with. Unemployment rate is very high in our area, much higher than the state in general, 45%. Navajo Nation median income is about half of what it is with the state of Arizona. The poverty rate's at 38%. Again, more than twice the rate in the state. So these are things that I think everyone is familiar with. What I want to say though here is that we've got all these challenges, but I'm hoping to get across the message today that the youth are very optimistic. The youth believe that we can do great things, and we need to support that enthusiasm that they have. So another factor we have presenting us on Navajo is there's slow growth and declining population. I happen to think that this has to do with so many people on the res needing to go off res to get jobs. So part of what I hope we are contributing to is the idea that we can create jobs on the reservation. Another issue that's been really important to us is the high rate of diabetes. As it stands now, more than 50% of Navajo adults are either diabetic or pre-diabetic. And this, you'll see later in the presentation how important this has become to us. Like many reservations, Navajo Nation is designated as a food desert because most communities don't have a store, a grocery store, within 25 miles. That's probably similar to a lot of you guys in the room here. Now this has been mentioned before too. 30 to 40% of the homes in our area and across Navajo Nation have no public water supply. So this gentleman over here, you see, this is typical of how people will haul water on in our area. They will get these drums and put them in the back of a pickup truck, go to the nearest well, and fill them up and bring them back. And of course, the elders are particularly vulnerable because a lot of them don't have pickup trucks working, and if they don't have relatives nearby to help haul the water, it's a serious problem. And there on the reservation, there are almost 5,000 wells, but most of those are unregulated and untested or have been used, but the local health authorities have said you shouldn't be using this for drinking water, but people are still using it for drinking water. Again, we have decided we have a solution to this that I'm going to tell you about. So, so our name, STAR School, is an acronym. It stands for Service to All Relations. We take that seriously. So since all of our kids come from the surrounding areas of Loop, Solani Lake, Bird Springs, and Flagstaff, and we consider the extended family, all our relations, then if there's a problem in the community, it's our problem too. And so we got involved in rural economic development because we know that if our families are doing better economically, the kids will do better. So the goals have been to stimulate the development of small and emerging food businesses owned and or operated by Native Americans. Like I said, we have made an effort to buy as much of the blue corn, squash, beans, and melons that we can from our local area. Also, we have a goal of creating new businesses and marketing opportunities for Native American entrepreneurs. I'll talk more about that later. But the key goal here is continually move the community towards self-sufficiency and self-determination. I can't overemphasize how important that one is. So sometimes we get, I think, we get so caught up in thinking about how we don't have enough jobs and don't have enough of this and enough of that. But we have to develop this idea that we can do it. We can do it. Creating and saving jobs by stimulating the rural economic development in our Western agency, and preserving and promoting Navajo traditions, culture, art, and language through our outreach and education. So we've gotten a number of grants from USDA, and we have these objectives here as part of these grants. We plan to develop our school, at our school, a regional food hub. Now, we're a tiny school. If we can do this, certainly bigger schools can do it. So we're thinking, okay, we're going to go ahead and set an example, because there are all these other schools out there that if they would just change their mindset, they could be an economic engine for their community. And I'd like you all, as you're listening to this presentation, think of your own community and the school that you have, and think of the economic power that that school has, if it had a different mindset. And we want to develop a water business to provide safe drinking water to all our community members. And part of our plan, since we're a school, is to develop an education center teaching job skills relating to providing resources like water and food. So these are some of the grants that we have received over the past few years. We've been highly successful, and I think part of the reason we've been successful is we have a great group of folks from Tucson who help us with our grant writing. That's number one. But we have actually done what we said we were going to do. We set out small goals, and we accomplished it. So in our Native American Food Hub, we are building greenhouses near our well. We plan to continue purchasing and distributing food from local farmers. We have a commercial kitchen at the school that we can use for the community. Community members could come in and cook in that kitchen and process the food and make something that's unique to them and then sell it. Also, we've done some hay sales. I have a relationship with the Fort Mojave tribe, where they grow lots and lots of alfalfa along the Colorado River. And we've been purchasing hay from them, bringing it up to our area and selling it to our local ranchers. We have a dream of growing Navajo tea. And Navajo tea is a wild plant. It grows along the roadways in Navajo Nation, but we've noticed that it's growing in fewer and fewer places. So we want to be able to increase the availability of that. And then finally, community water sales. We sell water from our well to local people at 2 cents a gallon, and they come in and pick up their water. So this is the location. This was actually a community well. The company that owned it went out of business, and the school, I won't go through all the details, it was kind of a crazy situation, but we were able to obtain this local well, and now it still serves the community. This is looking at it from Google, from the satellite, and this project site is where we plan to be growing the experimental crops and also doing the food hub. The school is just across the highway up at the top of the slide there. So we have a vision for the water. I've got a video embedded in here I'm going to show you in just a few minutes about the importance of drinking clean water. You know, in this whole presentations I've seen, which have been great, I think, by the way. This has been a really informative conference. But I'd like to see us look more at providing drinking water. So our well here has pristine water, but the wells that are to the east of us and further out onto the res that we go, the more contaminated the wells are with either heavy salts or with arsenic. And especially with the salts, the wells are so salty that people can't drink it, only cattle can drink it. So here's the idea. There are many, many wells that are already existing, and we have a water table that we can tap into. But if we can't drink that water, then what are we doing to ourselves? You know, we're limiting our own ability to be self-determined. If we can get it so that water in those existing wells can be safely drunk by our people, then our move towards self-determination is much stronger. So we've developed a filtration system to filter out the salts and to filter out the arsenic. And the water that is rejected as you go through the process can be combined with regular water and then can be fed to the livestock and used to grow vegetables. What's that? While he's getting that up and going. So think of this in your own community. How many of you have wells in your community that are only being able to be used by livestock? A few, okay. So for those folks that in our community, even those that are getting water from the tap, they have told us that it's discolored and tastes bad. And so one of our efforts now is to get to a point where the water isn't just provided to the house, but that it's actually high quality water. Can I do this now? Okay. So, whoops, went off again. So this over here is the water box. It's a 20 by 8 foot shipping container filled with all kinds of technical equipment. These are nano filters right here. So the nano filters are down So tiny are those holes in the filter that they can trap molecules like arsenic. In fact, they can even filter out uranium. There are lots of legal challenges with uranium though, and so we're not able to do that, but most of our wells around our area, the problem is salts and arsenic. So here you see our local farmer drinking water from this filtration system. And this system will produce 500 to 1,000 gallons a day of purified water. Now that the water that isn't purified needs to be used somewhere. And we are designing a system to use the water in our greenhouse. So we did something else. So in our area, the wells are spread out all over a very remote area. And somehow we needed to be able to get out to these wells and demonstrate to the community purified water. So we took one of our old school buses that still had a good motor and good tires, and we took out the seats and we put a water filtration unit in the back of the bus. And our students get to do this as part of science. You know, this is actually a very scientific process here, these filtration units, and be of service to the community. So they get to choose the wells that we go out and visit. They're the ones who filter the water, and the kids are the ones who actually will do the taste testing with the community residents, who mostly are their own relatives. And if the community likes the taste of the water, we will help them get the funding to get one of these filtration units at their well. So this is a video that we did just a couple weeks ago, and it tells its own story.
The Star School is located near the southwest corner of the Navajo Nation. We serve the Navajo communities of Loop, Talani Lake, and Bird Springs. The Navajo names for all of these communities include the word for water, To, Toflana, and Titito. This tells us that for many generations, traditional water resources have been recognized in our area, and that water has been very important to all of our community members.
Even though the Little Colorado River flows seasonally through our communities, providing clean drinking water to our families is a big challenge. Like many areas around the Navajo Nation, 30% of our families do not have running water coming to their homes. Many families have to travel many miles to haul water to their homes. Surprisingly, elders we interviewed were not in the habit of drinking water at all, and joked instead that they were 70% coffee.
When we looked further into the reasons for why children and adults in our communities did not drink much water, we discovered that part of the reason they didn't like the taste of the water or the way it was discolored when it came out of the tap. Water can taste bad when it contains contaminants of salt and chlorine. And when these contaminants are too high in drinking water, it can also result in health problems for people who drink it.
The STAR Water First project has focused on increasing water consumption in our communities in two ways. One is to demonstrate to all students how to create their own fruit-infused water and provide them with many opportunities to drink fruit-infused water around the campus.
It's cool. It has nothing in it and orange juice in it. That's flavored to me.
It's
Cool.
It's cold.
It's healthy. Refreshing.
It's refreshing. You like that we have it out here? Do you drink more water because we got it out here?
Yeah.
Of course, we are also encouraging all students to drink regular water as well. The second effort has been to work with water scientists and engineers to create a water filtration system that can be based at the school, and a solar-powered system that is installed in a former school bus in which our older students are involved in the science of filtering water and taking the bus out to the various wells in our community that are contaminated. In this way, the students become the water warriors for our community and help take on the responsibility of providing everyone with clean drinking water.
We believe that change in our community's habits of drinking water will happen most effectively through our students. Students who understand the health benefits of drinking fruit-infused water, for example, can be our most convincing ambassadors.
Dr. Sherman?
Yeah. Actually, once you put it in here, all that juice goes into the water and it can actually make it healthy like water. Instead of just putting like the one that the groceries in here, the one that you buy, they just put sugar in here. So this is actually like cooking water because of the fruits and the lemons and oranges and lime. And it will just go into the water and here it can actually be good by hand.
Great, thank you.
One of our parents told us how it was his daughter's initiative that got him to drop drinking so much soda and start drinking more water.
I'm a diabetic, type 2, and I've been sent to speak to dietitians, doctors, and all that. But what they showed me or told me never stuck in my mind. What my daughters are being taught has actually made an impact in how we buy food at the grocery store. Lots of fruits and vegetables. Drinking that infused water is also another thing at home. We are starting to experiment with different fruits and combinations. I like it. And the water bottles that say Dola soda, that's a good idea. I never knew that cucumber water was that good.
We know we are making a difference. 80% of our students indicate to us they are drinking more water now, and 50% have said they are drinking far less sugar-sweetened beverages. In the end, we know that it is the enthusiasm of our children to joyfully take on the responsibility of taking care of our sacred water that honors our families, our communities, and our culture.
Okay. So you can see we focused on drinking water, and we actually think there is great potential in drinking water as a business. I mean, water, we shouldn't have to pay for water. That's my first feeling. Water should be available to everybody. But we go into the stores these days and we see water for sale that costs more in the bottle than it does to buy a soda, right? And we see, you go into a fancy health food store and you'll see water in a very fine, beautiful container, $3, $4 for a bottle, and it's filtered water, is what it is, right? So, in our communities, I don't just mean mine, I mean everybody's, What if we brought forward our story of our water and bottled that water for those kind of high-end stores? Now, we haven't done this yet, but here's my idea. We have elders in the community who need water delivered to them, but we don't have money in any grant to do that. Wouldn't it make sense for us to bottle some water, sell it at the high-end stores, and use that profit to pay to deliver water to our elders? Does that make sense? It seems to me. So here is that plot of ground that we were talking about earlier, and our plan to develop it. So as I said, Navajo Tea, we've been in conversations with a Navajo tea company, Yanaba Tea, and they said they would purchase Navajo tea if we grow it. So this is, you know, whether they really will or not, we'll see, you know, but they said they would. And we have the community water pump right here, so people are coming in to pick up water anyway. We plan to develop an open air market down here. Oh yeah, right there. And here we have built a greenhouse. It's not complete yet, but we've gone to the county and asked to develop this whole area as what they call now in the county agritourism. So our idea is to have some guest houses, very simple places for people to come who are curious and want to help out with developing these, growing these native crops. Of course, we mostly plan to serve the kids in our school, but we would like to develop something that would support this so that we can actually do more services to the community. So we're a school, we're a nonprofit. Our intent isn't to make a huge profit. Our intent is to be able to do something that supports the other activities we want to do. So this is the graph of the plan that one of our USDA grants, by the way, is what gave us the ability to meet with architects on all of this. So here is the gathering, the place where residents or people would stay for short stays. There's a greenhouse right here. We recently became acquainted with microgreens that you can harvest every 2 weeks. And again, this is something we could sell to health food stores, we think. There's this food storage, and we would have this area here, open air sales for the local farmers to come in for a farmer's market. And gathering area here. We plan to put in a little storefront right here. And we even have a little place for livestock and sheep pen. So that's our current plan. I want to acknowledge all of these folks that helped us, but this was all paid for with a USDA Rural Development Grant. So we can get it, you can get it. So these are our kids, our beautiful kids. Some of them want to hide their faces, but they're a beautiful bunch of kids. And I'm happy to answer any questions anybody has. Thank you.
The approximate cost for the filtration system?
So the filtration system that we have now, initially for all the engineering and all of that, was about $90,000. But we believe now the cost can go way down because we've gone through that whole engineering phase. Comparable water filtration systems are in the several $100,000 range. Oh, now something I didn't make clear is this is designed to go with clusters of homes. So it's a decentralized system. So it's designed to provide enough water for maybe 250 people. So, you know, you would, in a community of 1,000, you would put in 4 of these, or we'd scale it up. Okay, the question was how long do the filters last? It depends on how badly, you know, contaminated the water is. Our water is fairly clean, so it'll last for a couple of years. But it could be every 6 months. One of the jobs we hope to develop is to go into the community and train people on how to maintain the water and change out the filters. And the nano filters are about $300, and the other filters are only $25. So every 6 months for really, really contaminated water. Yes?
So 2 questions. How are you testing the water after you do the filtration to make sure the filtration is working? And then the second question was, in your greenhouses, are you growing just in dirt, or are you doing hydroponics or aquaponics?
Okay, so the first question was how do we test the water afterwards? So we engage our older students in this. So we test for pH level, acidity or alkalinity, but that indicates a whole bunch of other things about the health of the water. We also test for arsenic, but testing for arsenic involves using some dangerous chemicals, so only the teacher does that, the science teacher. And we also test for total dissolved solids. So there's a simple test for total dissolved solids. The students can do that. So they can test for saltiness and for pH level and a few other things. And the second question was, do we plant all our plants in the ground? Yes, but we also have an aquaculture program. We don't know much about fish, so we're learning as we go with that. And we do have a hydroponics program, but we developed a hydroponics setup in one of our greenhouses where just the water flows through and feeds the plants. The problem with hydroponics is you have to keep adding fertilizer or some kind of chemical to feed the plants to it.
Unless you use fish.
What about?
Unless you use the fish.
Yeah, if you use the fish, then you know the fish poop, and that provides the fertilizer that goes to feed the plants. So it works. It's just taking care of the fish is the hard part. Yeah. Oh, that's a great question. So if and when we start bottling water, we'll have to get a license. But because we have water, the people that come and get the water are fewer than 25 a day, we don't go into the public water system. But eventually we will have to do that, and that means we'll have to test the water with you know, a certified tester once a month. Yes?
Can I give a plug real quick?
Yes.
Like Dr. Sorensen said, I have 2 children there, and my son is 4, Ashki, and my daughter is 8, and she went to preschool there, and they have it's called Ashkinablan. It's and then so they're together for 3 years. But I love this school. I'm really in love with it because my kids, they get their hands dirty. Like at Chinabuhan, they have their own little greenhouse garden against their classroom. They release butterflies. They go outside and get their hands dirty. They walk around and all that good stuff. And they also got a grant recently to do Navajo culture and language teachings for for the older grades and the younger grades and whatnot. So, and they are way out there. We live in Flagstaff, but they provide buses and vans that go into town to bring the students in there. And this whole school is all about family relations, hence their name. So wherever there's a function, Mr. Sorensen's there. If it's a birthday party, he's usually there. There's a gathering, a family, if you invite him, he comes. You know, so it's all about, and I really love getting emotional because anybody can do this school. My daughter, when she was in preschool, she would tell me that how much volts the solar panel on one building was doing, and that was more than I knew. And I was so impressed, and so they teach how to take care of how to take care of the earth. And my daughter was telling me about that bus the other day and whatnot. So it's just, it's amazing what they do. It's if you ever are down there, I would take a tour. They're always open to that. And it's just not Navajo kids. They have half Japanese kids there, Hawaiian, I think some African, some Mexican. I don't know if you still have some little Bilagani kids running around, but 2 of them, yeah, well, my kids are half, so. But anyways, thank you. That was a great presentation, so yeah, take over.
Any more? All right. So first speaker kind of looked at some projects over wider overview of what was going on in some of the areas, and it was a very targeted one looking at some critical issues that we talked about throughout this conference and the last one. And then our next speaker is going to give us some tools and actually look at business management curriculum, thinking through all these projects and how you get the tools in kind of nitty-gritty stuff. Dr. Kindercutters from Utah State University is our next speaker. She's been doing this a long time, so very good at it, with marketing and everything, and she's also great to work with too.
Thanks so much, Trent. And first of all, I just want to say what amazing projects that are going on and amazing things that, especially in the case of Mark's school, that obviously a few people are getting going and masterminding with, of course, the help of a larger community and the resources of some of the universities and things. So yeah, I actually have 2 things I'd like to do with you today. The first one is to look at some tools that we've created. So if you have ideas for various economic development or business development projects that you want to do, it just went, but it'll come out, there it is. A group of us, including Trent, myself, Stacy M., Carol Bishop, we had a pretty large team, but about 2.5 years ago, we put together a whole curriculum for Indian country, Native American, to look at how to evaluate business opportunities. So that's the first thing that I'm going to go just show you where it's at, what's there, how it can be used. Another thing we did with this curriculum, it's 8 modules, was to give all the resources there to be able to teach it. So it was to also be a professional development opportunity. So anyone with some basic skills and feels comfortable with the material can actually teach it to others, because there's all of the background information, there's worksheets, all of the PowerPoints have instructor guidelines, so it's really an amazing set of materials. It's actually a follow-up to another set of materials, which is personal finance, which most looks at family finance and personal finance. And again, in a really basic but usable way. So the web address, and I brought about 20 handouts. I know some of you sat in the back, but most of the handouts are here up front of the table, so if you want to grab them later, you can. Or you can just write down diverseag.org, and that will take you to a host of materials, this just being one of them. But that's the website where it's at. And so this curriculum is really looking to help you evaluate an idea you have. So it starts off with a really basic section of questions to ask yourself about this business plan that you have. Look at if the market, what would the market be for it? How much would you sell? What kind of pricing would you have? Kind of look at some basic financials in terms of what you might bring in as revenue, what you might have as costs, and then also look at tax issues, and there's also some Indian land tenure there. So these are the first 4 modules. Again, looking at your idea, thinking through it, and doing a basic business plan. Kind of looking at what the market potential would be. And again, all of the speakers this morning mentioned that they were working to develop markets and how important that was, whether it was selling beef to the casino, or being able to sell water, or just sell Navajo tea into specialty stores, and the importance of kind of knowing what the market is, what the pricing might be, before developing, completely developing the idea, just to see in econ speak what's feasible. That's what I would say from an economic perspective. But I also know, and as Mark mentioned quite often, that the needs of the community, so also the social and environmental sustainability and feasibility as well. And so that can also be considered here, although we do work a lot on the financials. So the third module is looking basically at doing some budgets and financial statements, again, to kind of look at the bottom line from a dollar perspective. And then module 5 looks at Indian land tenure issues. So, there were some questions about getting permits, what types of land you could use, whether it's allotted, all those types of things that were brought up already today. There's some information on that. Dealing with risk, ownership, insurance, those types of things in module 6, and then looking at the tax issues in module 7. I will say this was created before the tax change for the 2018 year, so we will be needing to update that. But again, just familiarizing yourself with the tax implications for those of you who need to consider those. I know some of you won't need to consider some of those things. Okay. So in this early idea, I'm not going to go through all these modules. I just want to kind of show you what's in this first one, because in the handouts and then also online, I actually gave you a copy of the business planning worksheets, but it basically asks you to go through a mini assessment of what your idea is and to think through it and kind of look at the state of your personal situation, your finances, your goals, okay, and see how your idea for a new business or a new project aligns with those. Looking at finances, and then marketing strategy and those types of things. And so for those of you who have handouts in front of you, in the very back you'll see this business planning workbook that was put together by the Small Business Development Centers. We have many of them in Nevada, many of them in Arizona, many of them in Utah. The states that I'm familiar with all have these, and all these development centers provide free business consulting to anyone and everyone. They're actually paid through state and federal government. And you can go in there and go through this business planning workbook with them and also do more advanced business planning. So it's really a great resource. I don't know about Arizona, but I know in Utah and Nevada we have one in practically every county. And again, they will sit down with you. I've also noticed, because I work with agriculture and food mostly, that a lot of their new people that they've been hiring to work in those centers are familiar with agriculture and food development, and that's new. That was something a few years ago they had less experience with in their offices, but now they're starting to hire people with those abilities as well. So some of the personal life questions that ask you kind of where you are, debt-wise, what your credit score is, what are you looking at to kind of take care of home before thinking about taking care of like a business venture, that type of thing. Thinking about the market for the product or the business you want to do, do you have training and experience? If not, where can you get it? Or would you be able to hire someone who has the ability to do those skills to fill in? The financial things, if you have to borrow, where might you do that from? How to evaluate the impact of borrowing, like looking at percentage rates and how credit score can have an effect on that. Do you have buy-in from your family? Starting a new business is a lot of work and a lot of hours, and so that's another consideration. And then specifically later on in the questionnaire, what is your idea? What type of skills do you need? Who's your customer? And just on through a set of questions. In my opinion, this type of planning probably takes you go through the same thing 3 or 4 times, just even this basic questionnaire, because as you develop your idea and as you have more information at your fingertips, it gives you the idea to fill in these questions better and then get to the point where, okay, this basic analysis, I feel comfortable with it now, I'm ready to move on to a much more detailed analysis to see if this is really going to work and if this is going to work for any credit I might be seeking and that type of thing, okay? And I'll just say there are a lot of tools available free online with any type of business planning, financial planning. It's just amazing what's out there for you. This is just one example of something we put together, but we were really trying to start from the very basics and move up, which we saw that wasn't really out there as much as we would like. Okay, so again, you can go through these questions, and then even in this first module, we are starting to look at finances and things to consider. Some basic budget spreadsheet here, just a few lines. Again, I just want to say, if you're starting to look at the costs and some of the potential revenues of your ideas, maybe excuse my language a little bit, when it comes to collecting data, it's kind of crap in, crap out, right? Okay, so, yeah, I know we got that on video, but anyway, that's really the best way to describe it. Collecting data and having really good data so you actually really know what might happen in the future when you get this business off the ground is really important. And it is a lot of educated guess, but again, a highly educated guess is probably better than a non-educated guess. So just something to think about when looking at this. I know with cooperative extension, especially in the state of Nevada, we actually have the 2 probably primary food and ag budget people sitting in the room. I know that I have colleagues in Utah that can help with this. In Arizona, I know there are people at the University of Cooperative Extension Service who can help develop your budgets and help you find good data, or at least think about where you might get good data to help you with your idea. A little bit about marketing strategy and how size can play an impact. Again, the later modules go into much more specifics. In this first module, we're just looking at thinking about what would happen and how to get started. So anyway, that's what that is. Some ideas of where you would sell it and these types of things. So let me just, again, you can go through basically what I would say probably a 2-month course here in these 8 modules, spending a few hours a week and going through it, and then enlisting the help of your small business development centers, your tribal ag development, business developing, cooperative extension to help you really facilitate the rest of your planning. Okay. For these bigger projects where you might be looking at starting a large new enterprise within the tribe or within multiple people doing, okay, one of the common analysis things that we do is cost-benefit analysis, okay, and it's really what it says. We look at all the potential costs of the project, whether it's putting in a new vineyard, whether it's starting a farmer's market, whether you want to do an agritourism or an ecotourism on your lands, okay? You look at all the potential costs, both financial and social, okay? And then look at what the benefits would be, both financial and social, environmental, okay? Again, this is another situation where the data that you collect needs to be really good and to be very educated so that the final analysis is an educated situation so that you can be pretty secure about what's going to happen in the end. Obviously, things change, government regulations change, maybe the capital structure, financing the project change. You know, those things do change, I understand that. But again, really good background data gathering can be very helpful with these projects. There's a lot also online on how to do cost-benefit analysis. And essentially, when you hire a company, a consulting company, or you hire one of your university extension economists to do a feasibility study, probably heard of that. This is what we're doing. We're doing basically cost-benefit analysis or some form of that. And when we look at what the benefits would be, especially, we're just really looking about, what is really the net current benefit? What's the benefit today of something that's going to happen in the future? Okay, so we have to discount that. I'm not going to go into all the details of discount rates and all that, but anyway, it's really pretty simple to show you mathematical calculation as long as you have all of the data, okay? So again, this is how this can be done. And with a good state of data, something you can do in an Excel spreadsheet easily. You do not have to have a PhD in mathematics to calculate this. In fact, for smaller projects, I could probably scribble it out on the back of an envelope for you, but I would probably feel safer doing it in Excel or something like that. But anyway, you have to have really a complete and systematic, again, assessment of what the potential cost would be. I guess I was saying that maybe a little more down to earth before, of what I meant by that. It can be difficult to predict long-term impacts, especially from a monetary side. And with factors to consider, I'm going to give you a tourism example here, so that's what I've got here. Migration patterns.